Back to the old saying, people will often forget what you say or do, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And well, if you try to stick them with a $10,000 markup, that's a feeling they'll never shake. $97,590, absolutely absurd. We can do that too. We can charge that much for our product. Let's polish up our turds and put it out there with that price tag. Somebody will buy it. Want a Ford Expedition? Get ready to refinance your house. $86,000 for this particular example, $83,000, $77,000. 3 out of 5 auto loans that are applied for every single day within the United States are for SUVs. And 25% of those being applied for SUVs are being denied by banking institutions. These are notorious garbage, let's face it. So the one that you can afford, well, it's the one that you don't want because it's going to turn into a boat anchor before you know it. Most Americans cannot justify taking a loss like that so quickly. Particular GMC Yukon Denali might be the most appalling example in my opinion. Now, the national average monthly payment on a new SUV purchase is just over $815. I believe this GMC Terrain Denali here epitomizes a big part of the problem. Repossession numbers are quite staggering and they're only getting worse as time moves forward. 52 grand for a Hyundai? That doesn't even sound right, does it? When this first came out a few years ago, MSRPs on the Bronco Raptor were right around the mid $70,000, maybe low $80,000 range. This one right here, $92,000 and some change. This one here, $96,000 and some change. I mean, what good is an extended warranty if it's always in the shop, right? Generally speaking, when you see a vehicle with this price point, you can expect that they outsource production of many of its components or the vehicle entirely to a cheaper labor country. YouTube Untamed here. SUVs have dominated the marketplace within the United States throughout the last several years. Vehicle manufacturers and dealerships alike, well, they're fully aware of that. Because of it, they took advantage of you and I, the consumer. Vehicle manufacturers really hiked up the price tags and overdid so many other SUVs. So many SUVs that used to be somewhat affordable, not anymore. They've been priced to the moon. In today's video, I'm going to present to you a number of stats, facts, and figures, new stats, facts, and figures that paint a clear picture as to why so many SUV buyers were screwed over by dealerships and vehicle manufacturers alike, and where we're heading throughout the rest of the year and into 2026. So stick with me as we talk through it all. I mean, it's saying something when brands like Chevy have been priced to the moon. Here we have a 2025 Chevy Suburban Premier. Get a load of this price tag. $85,410 for this. Absolutely sickening to think of a Chevy product costing that much. And right next door to it, well, this might actually be a little bit more. It's a high country trimmed example. Get up here on the front fender. And well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. $92,249 for this 2025 Chevy Suburban High Country. Let's check out this one right next door. What do we got? This one here should be less, right? It's a Suburban LT, but even the LT, more of a base model trim example, $76,605. Blown away by that. I hate that this has become our new reality, but it truly has. Even Chevy products are costing you an arm and a leg. And it's not just the big dog Suburban. Right next door to it, we have a couple Chevy Tahoes that are just priced out of this world. Get a load this. 2025 Chevy Tahoe High Country, $83,895. Absolutely absurd. The average cost of a new SUV within the United States right now is just over $60,000. That's just SUVs, but it does include all SUVs. Full-size SUVs, sport compact SUVs, you name it, 60 grand is where we're at. If you're gonna get a full-size SUV, get ready to buck up over $70,000. That's become the new norm. And because so many SUVs cost an arm and a leg now, that is why we see Chevy dealerships line their lots with the Chevy Trax in particular. Chevy Trax and the Chevy Trailblazer are still right around that $30,000 or less price point. Here we have an example of a 2025 Trax 1LT. A pretty bare bones example here, just over $24,000. So this right here, I mean, let's face it, it's not really the best vehicle. People don't get too excited about it, but what it does offer is a level of peace of mind. I don't say it because they're super reliable, but at least you get a manufacturer warranty with it. So that's why people will come out and buy it. 24 grand, you get a manufacturer warranty, something goes wrong with it, Chevy, GM should fix it. And here further down the lineup, we have the next two levels of that Chevy Trax. So we have a Chevy Trailblazer here and a Chevy Equinox here. Let me show you the price jumps that you're gonna expect to see between the two of them. Here we have a Trailblazer front wheel drive RS version of it and $29,190. Over here right next to it with the Equinox, looking at a price tag into the 30s, $35,000, hopefully you can see it, $35,939 for this Equinox RS front wheel drive. In fact, 3 out of 5 auto loans that are applied for every single day within the United States are for SUVs. and 25% of those being applied for SUVs are being denied by banking institutions. Banks are clamping down. They're realizing that really a lot of Americans cannot justify the monthly payments on these astronomically priced vehicles. And when you finally do find an SUV that you can afford and justify the monthly payments on, like this 2025 Nissan Rogue S all-wheel drive, you're gonna realize that you just bought a piece of crap. This has that CVT, continual variable transmission. Well, these are notoriously for failing on people. These are notorious garbage, let's face it. So the one that you can afford, well, it's the one that you don't want, because it's gonna turn into a boat anchor before you know it. Don't get me wrong, guys. I used to be a firm believer of you get what you pay for. I used to really believe that, really throughout the majority of my life. But when you look at vehicles like this, the new Nissan Murano, and you get a load of their price points, you just can't help but feel like you're getting the wool pulled over your eyes. $48,805 for this 2025 Nissan Murano SL all-wheel drive. They look okay, but I tell you what, as soon as you drive this off the dealership lot, prepare to lose 25 to 35% of its value. Pretty sickening. That's a huge part of the problem for so many Americans. Most Americans cannot justify taking a loss like that so quickly. Not anymore. You know, when you used to lose 25% off of a value of a vehicle, it wasn't so painful when the vehicle cost $15,000 to $20,000. Nowadays, when they cost 50 grand for a freaking Murano, that becomes such a pain point. So many dealerships lost the trust of their loyal customers throughout the last several years. A lot of dealerships were deploying markups, if you remember, on pretty ordinary run-of-the-mill vehicles. This Honda CR-V has always been a popular seller within the United States, and because of that, well, dealerships took advantage of your excitement. $41,000 is the MSRP for this particular one here. It's a Trail Sport CR-V. Dealerships would charge you $5,000 or $10,000 more than that MSRP price tag. Pretty pathetic, and because of that, well, those customers who got milked of a markup or turned away because they refused to pay a markup, they're not going back to that dealership ever again. Tell you what, there's probably a load of Honda dealerships out there who had wished this all-new redesigned 2026 Honda Passport had come out during the pandemic, because this would have been prime fodder for them to issue a markup on it. A lot of people were excited about this, a lot of buzz surrounding the full new redesign here. This would have been certainly a vehicle that they would have hit you with a $5,000 or $10,000 markup over MSRP to line their pockets. Here we have a number of Honda pilots here. Honda historically has done pretty good at limiting their production rates to match their projected demand. Obviously, no vehicle manufacturer successfully matched it during the pandemic, but Honda, they do better than most other vehicle manufacturers. Right now, they're kind of keeping up with that demand to some degree, whereas vehicle manufacturers like Toyota, Chevy, Nissan, they're still pumping out their vehicles, and well, there's no demand for it. There's no buyers for them. Even the Honda Pilot has gotten priced to the moon. This Honda Pilot here, it is an elite trim, so it's a kind of a top tier, top dog trim, but hopefully you can see it there, $55,715 for this Pilot Elite. 55 grand for a Honda. Maybe they didn't have to deploy markups after all, because they ended up marking up the MSRPs tremendously over recent years. Hopefully you can see it okay, but we're looking at an MSRP of $55,100 for this particular Honda Passport Trail Sport here. It's a good looking vehicle, but man, since when are we in the mid-50s for Hondas? Although I'm not wildly excited about Subaru, I do have a soft spot for the vehicle manufacturer. Out of all vehicle manufacturers, they actually saw the smallest MSRP price hikes since 2019. Since 2019, Subaru only bumped their MSRPs about 28% across their entire lineup, whereas the average across all other vehicles is about 42%, all other vehicle manufacturers. So I appreciate that about them, and I still appreciate the fact that most of the vehicles are still built entirely out of Japan. So that gives it some style points. Most vehicles coming out of Japan, many of my Toyotas that I've owned, were built with exceptional quality. Perfect fit and finish, had minimal issue with them. It really is a shame how hard pressed you are to try to find an SUV under $40,000 that actually gives you a level of peace of mind. The Subaru Forester, I think, scratches the itch to some degree, but really, even this wouldn't be my first pick. But that price point, this makes sense. A lot of people can justify the monthly payments on these Foresters compared to the competition. Most other vehicles, like I just saw, even at Honda, were priced in the mid-50s. So if you can keep it in the $40,000 range, I think that's a win. 1 out of 4 individuals with an auto loan out right now still has a negative equity. And the folks with a negative equity within the United States, the national average is just over $7,000. That actually came down a little bit since the beginning of the year. And that is largely thanks to the fact that used vehicle values have upticked about 10 to 15% on average across the board through wholesale and through auction. So your current value of your current vehicle went up a little bit. But I gotta tell you, it doesn't make too much of a difference when the prices of new vehicles have upticked about the same amount. So you have that same spread, you still have that same gap, it still doesn't make any sense to trade in. I want to show you an example of a used 2023 Ford Expedition Max here. This particular one I believe is a limited. 68,000 miles on it, and they still want $50,000 for it. You tell me if it's worth it. The brand new MSRP for this particular example is right around $81,000. So we have about a $31,000 drop over 68,000 miles. You tell me, is it worth it? Particular GMC Yukon XL Denali might be the most appalling example in my opinion. It is a 2021, so 4 years old, about to be 5 years old. It has 126,000 miles on it. 126,000 miles. And they still want, well, to be fair, they dropped the price a little bit to $41,000. That just doesn't feel right. Since when does a vehicle with a non-diesel vehicle with that kind of mileage demand that type of price tag? Kind of crazy. I always love to show these Cadillac Escalade IQs because these are the root of the problem when it comes to our astronomical monthly insurance premiums nowadays. Here, this one has an MSRP of $153,000. It is quote unquote discounted to $146,000. 146 grand for an electric SUV. That just blows my mind. And if you total this, if somebody crashes this and they get an insurance payout for a full total, well, that affects our premiums. Everybody's premium gets affected when these astronomically overpriced vehicles get wrecked. It should really be no surprise to you that every single vehicle manufacturer, with the exception of Tesla, has lost money on their EV segments. Their electric vehicle options, they lost a ton of money. And well, you and I are paying for it with their other vehicles. With their other vehicles within their lineups, they uptick the price tags of those just slightly, just enough to help make up for their losses. I mean, just to paint a picture for you, GM in particular, they're actually slowing the production of their Hummer EV and their Cadillac Escalade IQ over there that I showed you. They're slowing production of that because, well, people have voted with their pocketbooks, they just don't want it. Here we have an example of a 2025 Lyriq Luxury One for 65 grand. Yikes. Because vehicles like that Hummer EV and Cadillac Escalade IQ have failed so miserably, the chances of you seeing a sizable discount on vehicles like this, GMC Yukon XL or GMC Yukon Denali, become less and less likely. To get a huge discount and incentivized interest rate on this from the vehicle manufacturer, well, they're just not going to do it because they need to make up for the losses on their EV segment. And let's face it, we all need a huge discount off of this price tag, off this Denali GMC Yukon. $97,590, absolutely absurd. And personally, I never found the appeal of going out and overpaying for a vehicle like this GMC Acadia, only to lose your rear end on resale. Check this out. $58,700 for this 2026 Acadia Elevation all-wheel drive. 58 grand. Okay, I assure you, come time to trade that in, whether it's in a couple of years or 3, 4, 5 years, you're gonna lose over half of the value that you put into this vehicle. And most Americans, they just don't have that extra coin laying around to throw away. Now, the national average monthly payment on a new SUV purchase is just over $815. $815 is what people are paying. Pretty sickening. I mean, really, do the math. That $58,000 GMC Acadia there, if pretend you put 10% down on it and you finance the rest, about $53,000, $55,000 after tax, I mean, you are looking at a payment right around that point, $800 to $900, depending on your interest rate. And right now, with interest rates being right around 7% on new vehicle purchases, well, it could even be a little bit more. Although a small example, I believe this GMC Terrain Denali here epitomizes a big part of the problem. And that is, so many vehicle manufacturers feel the need to overstuff their vehicles with creature comforts, technology, all these things to hike up the price tag. This is a tiny little car. This subcompact SUV should be no more than 30 grand in my opinion. $45,830 for this Denali trimmed Terrain. Absolutely mind-blowing to me. Let me explain real quick, why do so many vehicle manufacturers pump out their high-spec, high-trimmed examples like the Denali Yukon behind me? They do it because the profit margin is much larger comparatively to a base model or a sparse-down trim. That profit margin, when you stuff it to the gills with technology, heated cool seats, all the additional leather, the navigation, Apple CarPlay, blah, 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 you name it. When you stuff it to the gills with things, well, the amount of money that the vehicle manufacturer and the dealership alike make goes up substantially. I mean, it really is saying something even when the target demographic for the Cadillac Escalade IQ is showing zero interest in it. This really is catered toward the top 1%ers, right? The people who can afford to come out and spend $150,000 plus on their SUV, let alone an EV version of an SUV. Generally, people who buy EVs, this is their secondary or third vehicle within their household. Very rarely is it their primary. A lot of people ignore the repo numbers. The repossession numbers are quite staggering, and they're only getting worse as time moves forward. And I think we just cannot ignore that anymore. Between 2023 and 2024, we saw a staggering, unprecedented increase of vehicle repossessions of 23% year over year, bringing it up to about 1.75 million vehicles being repossessed last year in 24 and 1.5 million in 2023. This year, we're on track to surpass it, and by quite a bit. We're looking at 1.85 million vehicles to be repossessed this year. And the most alarming bit of it all is the number of people who are voluntarily giving up their vehicle has gone up substantially. The people calling up the bank saying, hey, I just can't afford this vehicle anymore. I can't bear to try to make these payments. Please come get it from me. Come repo it. I caution you, if you go out and buy a used vehicle anytime soon, be sure to get a really good look at that vehicle, up, down, all around, underneath it. Take it to your local mechanic, a mechanic that you trust, and just get a good feel for what you're buying. Because not all the time are you going to get a vehicle that it's conveyed or reported that it was a vehicle repo. That's not a requirement in every state. So there's a chance that you're buying a vehicle that was heavily neglected throughout its original first part of its life, right? If somebody wasn't able to make the monthly payments on it, what makes you think that they had the money or wherewithal to make the necessary maintenance and service appointments for it? So you could very well be buying a vehicle that's been hugely neglected. So keep an eye out for that. For me personally, I do find it quite upsetting that when you go to any dealership now, you're just going to see a sea of subcompact SUVs, crossover SUVs, full size, blah, blah, blah. It's just SUVs everywhere. And I get it. That's what's selling. That's why they do it. But very rarely do you walk up on a dealership and see any sports sedans or sports cars anymore. These are just a dying breed. So definitely sad, especially having owned a number of WRX STIs throughout my lifetime when I was a younger pup. I don't know. We literally only have 2 WRXs on this entire Subaru lot. There's a million Crosstreks, Subaru Outbacks, Foresters, Ascents, you name it. But well, only a couple of these guys, and that's only going to get worse as time goes on. Then you have vehicle manufacturers like Hyundai, who I believe are dipping their toes into dangerous territory, muddy waters. And what I mean by that is, you've always bought a South Korean manufacturer car like Hyundai or Kia to save substantially on the price tag of it, all while knowing that you're maybe compromising your long-term reliability, right? You never bought a Kia or Hyundai to think that it would last forever. You bought it because it was super affordable compared to the competition, especially compared to this Japanese competition, the Hondas and Toyotas of the world. You can go buy a Hyundai or Kia and save substantially. Not anymore though. Let me remind you of how much they want for these things. Let me just pick one at random here. Hopefully there's a window sticker over here. You can see it. Hopefully you can see it, maybe not, but $52,995 for this Hyundai Santa Fe. They look cool. I appreciate their design cues. They're definitely unique with this boxy design, but 52 grand for a Hyundai? That doesn't even sound right, does it? And really, it's no surprise. Go to any Kia or Hyundai dealership and you'll see just this. Really, I would argue even more so comparatively to many other vehicle manufacturers. They just have lines upon lines of unsold Kia. And I think it's dangerous territory for them because they're not a luxury SUV segment, right? They don't need to be this. They need to capitalize on what made them great, and that was just being very affordable. And they've just gotten too far away from it. Go to any Hyundai dealership or any Kia lot, you're gonna see this, just lines upon lines of unsold inventory, and mainly, most of them are their higher spec, higher trimmed examples, like their Kia Tellurides, the Hyundai Santa Fe's here, the Palisades, you name it. They've been priced to the moon, and well, they priced out their target demographic. I'll say it like that. Call me harsh all you want, but I do believe it's just vehicle manufacturer greed, right? They see the competition charging X amount for their Toyota Highlanders, their Honda Pilots, and they think, well, we can do that too. We can charge that much for our product. Let's polish up our turds and put it out there with that price tag. Somebody will buy it. And while they're not entirely wrong, especially during the pandemic when money was cheap, you can get loans for 1% or 2% or less, people are just throwing money out the window. And well, A lot of people who bought these are regretting it. Before I leave the dealership here and before a lot of the Hyundai fans beat me up, don't get me wrong, I like Hyundai. I like the Kia Tellurides, but I just don't like them for their price points. I do believe that they are easily 25 to 30% overpriced for what you get. Let me real quickly remind you of how much they want for the Hyundai Palisades. And just looking at the Palisade next to that Santa Fe side by side, you gotta admit, the Santa Fe definitely feels a little bit more special when it comes to the design cues in general. But the Palisade here, $58,000 for this particular one. 58 grand. It's more than the Santa Fe. And well, looking at the two of them, I'd be hard-pressed to try to put my money toward this one. To be fair, Hyundai and Kia, they're both pretty well known for offering pretty incredible manufacturer warranties, right? Compared to the competition, their warranties are definitely better. But when it comes to their resale value and overall reliability, it's just not there. I mean, what good is an extended warranty if it's always in the shop, right? So have that in the back of your mind. Bronco Raptor in particular exemplifies a pretty big problem that we saw within the automotive industry at large. MSRP price hikes, okay? When this first came out a few years ago, MSRPs on the Bronco Raptor were right around the mid $70,000, maybe low $80,000 range. This one right here, $92,000 and some change. This one here, $96,000 and some change. So those MSRPs continue to hike up. It's kind of a catch-22 because when they first came out, so many Ford dealers were hitting you with a markup, a $10,000 or more, $15,000, $20,000 markup over MSRP, bringing them up to $95,000, $100,000. It's a catch-22 because, well, that's where they're priced at today. It's not uncommon to find a Bronco Raptor priced at $105,000 or $102,000 plus. Pretty wild. Well, need I say more? Go to any Ford dealership and you're going to see what you see behind me. Lines upon lines of unsold big body Broncos. Lines upon lines of unsold Bronco Raptors too. A limited production vehicle like the Bronco Raptor, even they are plaguing dealership lots right now. Ford dealerships today will try to line their lots with these smaller Bronco Sports. Not because they're wildly popular, but because if somebody comes in trying to buy a vehicle or trade in a vehicle, this is what they can get them into. Perhaps, become quite commonplace now for people to try to go to a dealership to get out of their existing enormous loan. And well, this right here serves as a parachute for a lot of people. They can get out of their huge F-250 diesel loan at $100,000 and get into one of these, priced around that $30,000, $35,000 price point. This allows them to have some financial freedom. Generally speaking, when you see a vehicle with this price point, you can expect that they outsource production of many of its components or the vehicle entirely to a cheaper labor country, which we see here with the Bronco Sport, produced entirely out of Mexico. We have vehicles like the Toyota Sequoia here. I think a lot of people will go to their local Toyota dealership and see just a few of them on their lot and wrongfully assume that they're selling well, that they're selling better than their other vehicles. That's incorrect because they're just producing a lot less of these compared to the rest of the lineup. $86,272 for this 2025 Toyota Sequoia Platinum. It does have a 3.5 liter twin turbo V6 hybrid V6 underneath the hood, again adding to the problem. Most people cannot pop the hood and work on their Toyota Sequoia with any level of confidence, especially the hybrid version. And honestly, a part of me is worried. With each passing year, we just see more and more vehicles that look like this. They're all starting to look like this. These smaller subcompact SUVs that, they don't stimulate your senses. They're pretty boring overall, right? But the price points, right? They make sense for so many Americans. $36,039 for this Toyota Corolla Cross here. This XSC trim here, 36 grand. You can justify those monthly payments, right? Being a bit of a Toyota enthusiast myself, I'm especially disappointed with how Toyota handled and managed their greedy dealerships throughout the last several years. Toyota was among the worst, I would argue. Obviously, all vehicle manufacturers and all dealerships fell victim to greed throughout the pandemic. When supply was low and demand was high, man, did they take advantage of you and I, the consumer. Toyota, though, gosh, as soon as they received any TRD Pro trimmed example, whether it's a 4Runner, Tacoma, Tundra, Sequoia, you name it, any TRD Pro, they were quick to slap you with a markup of $5,000, $10,000, or $15,000 over that sticker price. People don't buy Toyotas to overspend, right? They buy these Toyotas for three things: reliability, simplicity, and affordability. And well, when you slap a markup on it, you're doing two things. You're no longer making it affordable, of course, and you're rubbing your customers the wrong way. You're flicking them to the curb, and I guarantee it, the dealerships that deployed those markups, those customers, they're never going back to that dealership ever again. Even if they had been going there for years, they're not going back to them. Back to the old saying, people will often forget what you say or do, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And well, if you try to stick them with a $10,000 markup, that's a feeling they'll never shake. At any Ford dealership, you'll see lines upon lines of unsold Ford Explorers here. I'm always appalled by just how much they want for these now. This is America's family hauler. This used to be very affordable and justifiable. Not anymore though. Get a load of this. Hopefully you can see it okay. But we're looking at a price tag of $62,355 for this Ford Explorer ST trimmed example. Absolutely sickening. Want a Ford Expedition? Get ready to refinance your house. $86,000 for this particular example. $83,000, $77,000, $75,000. $84,000. Get ready, the most affordable is coming up, $77,000 and $72,000. How about that? And the Tremors, $84 to $85 grand down here. I just can't imagine forking over mortgage-sized payments for an SUV. And that's what you're going to be paying. You're going to be paying anywhere from $1,700 to $2,000 per month, depending on how much you put down, of course, with current interest rates over 60 months or 72 months. Pretty sad. Now, honestly, it won't be long until Jeep needs to kill off the Wagoneer and Grand Wagoneer. These are not selling well and they're not even leasing well. And when you look at the price tags, you can tell they were too big for their britches when they set these up. They tried to join the large full-size SUV luxury segment and, well, they fell flat on their face in doing so. I would comfortably argue that these are 30 to 40% overpriced for what you get. And I think 30 to 40% overpriced for a starting point, a pre-negotiation starting price, right? You need a level of peace of mind. You need a level of reliability if you're going to spend this kind of coin on a vehicle. And that's just a level of reliability that you do not get with this Stellantis product. And Cherokees were sporting the V8s. They were a little bit more popular, and rightfully so, but nowadays it's just hard to justify. And when you look at the resale value of these Grand Cherokees, gosh, just prepare to be super disappointed. If you buy one, drive it for 5 years, man, you just totally lost your rear end. Hey, this one's the Freckle Edition. How about that? Pretty cool. If you've been following my channel for any length of time, you know I do have a soft spot for the Jeep Wrangler and Jeep Gladiator. Just the price points, they've gotten completely out of touch with reality, right? I mean, MSRP on this particular Rubicon, $67,000, 67 grand. You know, this truly is an American icon. I love it for that reason. I love the fact that Jeep is offering a 6.4 liter Hemi V8 in the 392 edition of the Wrangler and soon to be the Gladiator. I love that they're doing that. I love that Ram's bringing back the Hemi V8s. I applaud them for that. I just wish the price points were more bearable. Guys, we'll wrap up the video there. As always, I sincerely appreciate you taking the time to tune into these videos. If you appreciate this type of content whatsoever, I do respectfully request that you please consider liking and subscribing. Your support means a ton, and I promise you, it doesn't go unnoticed.